Donna, can you come
I'm not crying, I'm sweating tears. So, I wrote some notes, but I think I just want to take a minute to speak from the heart. In the last few weeks that my dad was alive, him and I talked quite often. We were sharing in a journey in a fight against cancer, and with him helping his wife, Rosa was fighting lung cancer, which what we believe she beat it, only to succumb to brain cancer that spread. And Wes's granddaughter, my second daughter, Phoenix, up here in the front, who cannot be tamed. She is our little survivor and miracle, as she was born with a rare blood cancer. And the last time we were here, she was only 8 weeks old, and a week later she ended up in the hospital where she received a bone marrow transplant. Can you stay here with me? So, we often talked about the struggles of life, and we talked about death and what death meant, and somehow when you are that close to death and you see how hard life can be, crossing over doesn't seem so bad. And I remember right after Rosa passed, I didn't know how I would comfort my father. And amazingly, he was comforting us. And even in his sorrow and his blues, he was so happy. And our last conversation, he knew it was our last conversation, and I suspected it was. He was just so full of joy and sharing stories of the past and stories of people he had loved, and he said to me, "You just have to live every day like it's your last." And I put that quote on the back of the program because my father believed in a lot of positive things, and beyond just living every day like it was your last, as children, he had my sister and I memorize poems, and he tailored the poems to who we were as people, and he recognized that as a child I was a worrier, and he recognized that my sister didn't always think positive. So he had us both remember a poem, and my father's favorite poem is the poem my sister had to memorize, and part of that is also in the back of your program. But I'll tell you the whole poem, and Linda correct me because it wasn't mine, so I didn't remember it. But he would always say, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. And, sometimes to remember it, we have to sing it. But it's so important because my dad taught us that what you focus on is what you perpetuate in your life. So if you focus on everything that's negative and you think about everything that's negative, that's what's going to continue to grow in your life. And he was an advocate of positive thinking, so I just wanted to share that for a moment, and I'll go to my notes. But my sister and I were actually discussing in the car the other day, how do we translate to a congregation who Wes Wilhite was? And the truth is, he's somebody different to each of you. And I don't think any words or any message I speak today could really embody who he was as a person, because he was so much bigger than that. And he would love to be here right now. He would just enjoy it so much, being around people from the past and being around his grandchildren and meeting his new granddaughter. And he would be so happy right now. But he's truly just one of a kind, and that's all we could come up with, is that he's like a diamond in the rough, a diamond that can't be cut. And I know that each of you that is here, you mean something to him, and he meant something to you. And all of those feelings and meanings collectively make up who the person Wes told my sister, I haven't broken down yet. I don't know if it's just not real or what's going on. I haven't broken down. And I haven't broken into a million little pieces like I thought I would when my dad passed. And I think it's because my heart is so full. And he is so full of life, and I have so many memories and so many good things that I experienced, that I'm so honored and privileged to be part of his family, that I'm not going to break down. And I think that hearing more about his life from you and how you interacted with him is only going to help fill us up and keep us strong, because today is really one of those days that the devil would love to break us right now. But we won't let him. So after sharing my father's passing with a few people where we live locally, I was asked more than once, did your father know the Lord? And yes, Pastor Wes is right. My father knew the Lord. And it's one thing, and it's the most important thing, to know Jesus and to know that Jesus is the way. But then when you call yourself Christian, how you live often shows others how to find the way. And my father knew how to love. Like, if I could think of one thing, he just loved. And I'll share with you a scripture that you often have heard, but I want you to think about this when you think about who you love and who loves you and how you love. Because we all think that sometimes love is like a feeling or something you see in the TV or in a movie. But the Bible tells us what love is and how to love. And when I read this, it's just, I feel like my father wrote it. He said in Luke 6, verse 35, but love your enemies. I don't think my dad had an enemy. He might have made people mad, but he made it his mission to make it right with them. Do good. Lend, hoping for nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. For he is kind to the unthankful and evil. But here's the part that really embodies my dad. Love suffers long and is kind, even through suffering. Many times I thought I would lose my own daughter in her battle. And I remembered that my father lost his first son at only a year old. And my heart just broke because I think about what it would be like to lose a child. But one thing I know is that my father and I grew closer to the Lord in that, because God himself lost his own son. And what it must have felt like to be Mary and to see her son suffer and die. So we grew and we healed from that. But love suffers long and is kind. And this is from 1 Corinthians. It does not envy, it's not jealous. My dad did not envy anybody. He just strived to be his own person. He had no shame in who he was. Love does not parade itself. Well, he might have rode a motorcycle with a Santa suit once or twice. But he wasn't, yes, he was in a parade when he ran for Santa. But that's not the point. Love is not puffed up. Love does not behave rudely. It does not seek its own. It is not provoked. It thinks no evil. It does not rejoice in iniquity, but it rejoices in truth. I think that's an important thing being an attorney. My father always believed in being honest. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things.
Here, Mom, show Lord your phone.
Love never fails, even to death. We talk about leaving a legacy when we die, and I believe my father's legacy was love. So my father traveled many places, and each place he went to, he made new friends, and many of those friends became like family. In fact, I feel like my father redefined the word family, because it didn't mean the traditional mother, father, children, grandchildren. My father, I think my stepsister said it best, my father collected children, and they collected him. his stepchildren as he was with his nieces and nephew. It made no difference to him. And his grandchildren were his pride and joy. I remember being terrified to tell my father when I first got pregnant. And my father does not judge. He does not judge. And he doesn't like to be judged, and he'll let you know he doesn't like to be judged. But when I announced to him that I was having a baby, it was very hard for me to tell him that. I think I put it in a note and handed it to him. But he immediately took me to the back of the house where he was building a little log cabin playhouse and just told me he was excited. And that, you know, that meant so much to me because I was sure my dad was going to step out of who he was and judge me, but he didn't. And his grandchildren are the apple of his eye. So as we cleaned out his office this week, I saw so many wonderful character qualities about my father that he tried to instill in us. Some of those being the positive thinking and the affirmations. I found several notebooks and booklets where every day he wrote down thoughts or things he needed to do, and then he'd literally draw a square box next to it and check it off once he accomplished those things. And so between buying bread and feeding Jakey, he'd have buy a limo and hire a chauffeur as a goal of his, because he believed in setting goals and having dreams and thinking big and the power of positive thinking. And I'm so glad he taught me that, because it doesn't matter what you go through. I feel like everything my worst nightmare I ever faced, and every time I faced something like that, I just knew, and I could hear my father's voice telling me how I should believe, how I should think, and it got me through. He didn't believe in acquiring stuff, although he's had a lot of stuff. He didn't hang on to it very long. He wasn't one to really follow status, although he liked nice things. I think he more saw the potential in things. He might have saw an old, rusty diesel Mercedes, but figured, I can get this for cheap and I can fix it up and I'm going to sell it for more than what I bought. And I think in my father's head it was worth more than he ever sold things for. He would collect watches, and more recently he started buying expensive watches because he felt like he had his own sense of security, that if he was somewhere that he got stuck, he could go pawn his watch because it was worth something. And then, as you can see, he started collecting teacups. And I think probably once every couple months I was getting a teacup in the mail from my dad. And he came out to see us in New Jersey for Thanksgiving a few years ago. And in the winter, in the snow, he decided to ride my daughter's bike to the Goodwill, where he bought some teacups. And on his way home, he dropped them. They all broke. And he had worked so hard to get them, so he sat there for hours gluing them back together. So my favorite teacup at home will be the broken one that he glued together. But things didn't matter to him. He'd be willing to give it all and give it all to you if you needed it. And he loved music. Music ran through his blood, and he often pressured family to sing with him. He had these visions and grandiose ideas of being in a band. And that I guess we would be the traveling Wilhite band. Dad would play every instrument. He would be on the guitar and the piano and then the organ, and he'd make somebody be on the harmonica, and Linda had to sing. And he just wanted a band. And more recently, he joined the Boise Blues Society, where he'd go and hang out with people like-minded who love motorcycles and get together and have jam sessions. And I just want you all to know